Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. In this video, what I'm going to do is talk about how to put together a project called the Japan brochure. And this is a project that is an 8-page brochure, and this is going to be your first project. And I'm going to go through the steps on how to put it together. It's a fairly complex, well, not really complex project, but kind of intermediate level, maybe slightly intermediate advanced level. But you should be able to have no trouble, hopefully, once I get through the demo. So this is going to be a demo that I'm going to break up into possibly 3 videos. The first video is going to be to introduce you to this project, to show you what the final result is and what we're trying to accomplish, and also how to prepare our files for putting this brochure together. It's going to involve Photoshop and InDesign, those 2 programs. And the final result is going to be you uploading this to Adobe's server, the InDesign server, and being able to distribute this as an interactive animated file. So with all that said, the best thing to do is to show you what the actual final result is going to be, and then we'll go back and we'll talk about how to get there. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen. And I've opened up the project here in Canvas, and it's called the Japan Travel Brochure. And just to very quickly read the description here, it says in this project you will create the following 8-page travel brochure in Adobe InDesign and Adobe Photoshop. The project will be saved as an INDD file to your thaw space and published online using Adobe's InDesign's Publish Online feature, which I'll talk about. Once published, you will submit the URL link at the bottom of the assignment, and I will be able to click on that URL link. I will go to Adobe's server, to their site. I will be able to see your project. I'll be able to evaluate it and see if all the parts and pieces are put together correctly and all of the animations are working correctly. All assets in this project can be downloaded by clicking the following zip file below. Okay, so in this zip file here, you'll download this file to your computer, and inside this file will be all of the photographs and typefaces and everything that you're going to need to create this project. Here's a quick visual overview of the project. It consists of a cover, and then this is a spread, page 2 and page 3. And it's a spread on the city of Tokyo, but in the actual one that we're going to do, it's not going to say Tokyo, it's going to say Japan. Then the next spread is going to be the city of Kyoto, which involves a photograph, and these photographs here, these little circles, are places in Kyoto or Japan, places of interest. And we're not going to use individual photos for all of these. We're just going to use one photo and duplicate it. But the idea is that if this were a real brochure, these would be actual photos of different places of interest that you would go in that city. So in Kyoto, there's temples and restaurants and, places interesting places to see. The third spread will be the city of Osaka. And again, and you can see that the layout is very similar on each spread. And that has a lot to do with the way we design brochures, where we keep consistency in each in each spread. And then this is the back cover. Okay, so we have a cover, we have 3 spreads, and then a back cover. So that kind of gives you a quick overview of what it's going to, how it's going to be. Let me show you the actual animated final finished version of this, and that will be on Adobe's website. So I'm going to go over to indd.adobe.com and show you the final. Okay, so this is Adobe's website, and you can see that it says indd.adobe.com. You're going to publish your work from InDesign to this site, and you're able to do that with a cloud subscription. You can do that at school. And this represents the cover. Now, if I refresh the screen, you'll see that there's some animation here. There's a little dissolve in, kind of a video technique. And so I'll refresh this in 3, 2, 1. And you can see that little dissolve in. Okay, so that's the cover. We're going to go to the first spread, and you'll see the animation as it happens. Okay, so that's what happens. Now again, this is all done in Adobe InDesign, and we'll go through it step by step. There is also a sound button here, because there's music that you can play in this brochure as well. So I have a little sound button here. If I roll over it, you can hear the sound. Roll over it again, click on it, and the sound is on and off. So it's a sound on and off button. Very similar to what you would do in web design. Although we're not creating a website. We're not creating a web page. There's no coding involved in putting all of this together. So it's very simple. It's very easy, as long as you know the steps and how to prepare. So this is page 2 and 3. And then we'll go to 4 and 5, and that's Kyoto. And you can see the individual photos of different places to go and see would come out here. These are all the same, but just for the sake of expediency and getting this done quickly, we're going to use the same photos. But you would change these out if this were obviously if this were a real project. Okay, and then the next spread is Osaka. And again, places to see. And then the last page is the back cover. So we're assuming that this is an actual printed brochure. It's acting like it's a printed brochure, but it's much more, because it has animation to it, it has sound to it. But it's designed as if this were a printed brochure. And this can also be, once it's constructed in InDesign, it can also be sent to a printer and printed into a actual 8-page brochure. So it's kind of doing double duty in this, and that's something that we do in graphic design these days, because not only are we designing for print, but we're also designing for the internet and for interactive publications, EPUBs like we call it, electronic publications. Okay, so that is kind of the gist of what this assignment is going to end up looking like. How does it look like in Adobe InDesign? Well, let me go to InDesign, and I'm going to launch InDesign, and I'm going to launch this project. So this is what you're going to build. And I will go to page 1. And this is the cover as it looks like, as it appears in Adobe InDesign. Okay, we have page 1, page 2 and 3, 4 and 5, so forth. Okay, this is the way it's constructed. So if I go to page 2 and 3, we'll see, let me just show this as a spread, Command Option 0. And you can see actually all the pieces now in this. We have text boxes, we have photos. This whole photo here actually is a photo that's modified in Photoshop, and that's what we're going to learn, the first thing we're going to learn. is to get all of our photos prepared for this project. These are photos inside of little circles. As you can see, I'm just going to pull these out. Again, another text box. And these are little bits of text boxes. And if I zoom into this, you can see that this actually is words. Another thing to notice is that this is not really real copy. This isn't actual English words. This is what we call placeholder text. And placeholder text is used in graphic design when we're kind of mocking up an idea for a client. In other words, we're showing a client what the brochure is actually going to look like without having the real copy in it. Let's say the copy hasn't even been written yet. Let's say we're waiting for a writer to write the copy so that we can input it in the actual brochure. But the client wants to see, well, what is this going to look like? Give us an idea of that. So we would fill this with what we call placeholder copy. I'll talk about that in the second video when we talk about how to lay this out and how to set the typography. Okay, so let me back out of that. And as we go to each spread, you can see that it's pretty much set up the same. We have a photo here. I'll just grab this photo and you can see as I move this photo, you can see how that is part of it. We have some text here, and I can move this text. We have individual photos in circles. We have, again, placeholder text. And we have this little element over here that's kind of a design element that's telling us that this is the second city in the brochure, whereas this is the first city in Japan, this is the second city in Japan, and this is the third city in Japan, you can see over here. So it's a little circle with a line coming down. Looks like a lollipop. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the design philosophy of this, of how it was created, of why it was done this way. I did this as an example. I laid this out. A lot of the layout and the feel for this and why I use photos and why I use certain typefaces and things like that all are part of your discussions with the client. The client is looking for a particular feel, and that, as a designer, that's up to you to kind of find out what the feel of this brochure should be, and then to apply your own creativity and create your own layout. I talk a lot about that in the Fundamentals of Graphic Design course, Art 145, but this is more about how to put this together. Okay, so we're really going to focus on the actual techniques involved in getting the photos to look like this, and then how to set the copy and placement and all of that on the page. Okay, so this is what we're going to achieve in InDesign, and once we're done with this, we're going to go up and we're going to share this as an interactive document. And we're going to apply interactivity to this. And I'm going to show that to you in the third video, where we apply all of the animations and, the text that comes up and, the photos that dissolve in and so forth. And I'll show you that. And then we're going to publish this online, and you're going to see the end result as being this animated version here. And you can see the animation and how all of these things kind of come in. Okay, so lots of things to go over, and I want to do this kind of step by step in a methodical way. So, these videos might get a little long, but you can kind of fast forward through it and repeat certain things that you're. What I suggest you do is have this video open and watch it and then do it at the same time. So the idea will be for you to have headphones on in class, watch the video, and then have InDesign open on your screen. And as I do it, you do it, and you just kind of keep going back and forth with it. and you'll get through it. I think this is easier to accomplish through a video than it is through a step-by-step tutorial, like a written tutorial. Written tutorials get kind of confusing sometimes. Okay, so let's get started with all of this, and let's break this down into its fundamental elements. If I go to page 1, we can see that page 1 is basically a photograph. If I pull this photo away, you can see that this is a photograph. Let me turn on my guides here. So you can see this is a plain photograph. Then there's a bar here with the word Japan and another line of text here. So that's basically it. 3 elements, a photograph and 2 text boxes of text. Let's go to page 2 and 3. And when we break it down this way, you can see that it's kind of easy to understand. We have a main photograph here. Okay, if I pull that away, we have text here. That's actually this text here. We have a circle with text in it. Okay, so these are 2 elements here. We have a line here. We have a text box here with text in it. We have another text box here with text in it. We have 4 boxes or 4 circles of photos, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes of text and a sound button, and that's basically what it is. Okay, I'm going to do Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, and just get all of these things back to where they used to be. Now, once we have this, we can easily put these other pages together because we're going to use the same blocks of text, the same photos, the same captions, the same circle, only it's going to say O2 instead of O1. So we're going to basically copy and paste these elements to this spread. You can see that this and this are the same, these are the same, this is the same, this text is the same size, and all of that. It's just a different word, and then the photo is different. So copying and pasting, once we build one page, we're going to copy and paste a lot of the elements to the second spread and the third spread. Okay, if I go to this spread, you can see again, we have the same 2 text boxes, the same photos, the same word and type size and all that. Different word, but the same size and type font, and a different photo. So these other pages will come together very quickly because we're going to copy and paste most of these elements. We're not going to have to set all this text each time. And then the last page here, you can see it's the exact same photo as the first page. See this bamboo branch that comes in? This is page 1 here, and it's that exact same photo. And the only difference is that now we have this different text here, here, and here. Okay, you see this bar here that comes across? Well, that's the same bar that's coming across here. Okay, this kind of ghosted box here. Okay, so when we look at that, we can see that this is really just a matter of putting one spread together and then just kind of tweaking it for the other spreads. All right. So the first thing we have to do is we have to make sure that we have all of the assets. When we say assets, we're talking about the things that we need to put together. Photographs, graphics, copy, whatever, are considered assets. And so our assets that we need are basically photographs and type fonts. Now you need type fonts because these specific fonts right here, this is a font called Chunk 5. And Chunk 5 is not a font that is natively on your computers in class. So I have included that font in the assets folder. Okay, so let's go to the assets folder. I'm going to hide all of this stuff now. Let's go back to the travel brochure in Canvas. Okay, so you've opened up Canvas and now you're going to see the Japan brochure assets zip. and you're going to download this. Okay, so just click on the down arrow here, and when you do that in class, you'll see that the zip file downloads to the bottom here. It's very quick, should download very quickly. I'm going to pull this zip file out, and you all know that a zip file is just simply a file that is a compressed file. So there's many other things inside of this zip file. We have to expand it so that we can see all the photos or folders and everything else that's in here. So I'll double click on the zip file, and it opens up a folder that exists in the zip file. If I open up the folder, double click on it, you can see inside of this folder are document fonts. Okay, shows all the fonts that are used in this project: Chunk 5, Impact, and Myriad Pro Condensed. All of the images that we're going to use, we have the cover and the back cover. We have the Japan photo, we have the Kyoto photo, and we have the Osaka photo. And then we have this photo called Restaurants. And this is the photo that we're going to use for those little circles. You know, the little circles that contain all of the, places of interest. Okay, we're just going to use one photo for all of them. And we're going to copy and paste them in. Just to show the client that, yes, these would be different photos, but, you know, we're just going to do that for the sake of speed. Okay, so these are all of the images, photographs that we need. And then music, this is the actual MP3 song that we'll ultimately put in the first page or the first spread. And then this is the sound button that we're going to use to program that music to come on and off when we click on it. Okay, that will be done later. That will be done in the third video. We'll talk about how to create the sound button and how to make the music play and all of that. But these are all the assets that you're going to need to put this together. So what I want you to do is after you expand the zip file, you're going to go over to your thaw space here, and you're going to, you have your name of your folder here. And inside that folder, you're going to create another folder. And in that folder, you're going to call this the Japan Travel Brochure. Okay, and in that Japan Travel Brochure, you're going to put your Japan Brochure Assets folder that you unzipped, okay, in this folder here. So I'm going to grab this folder and just drag this over here. Okay, and load this into my thaw space. So now inside of my thaw space, I have everything that I need: fonts, images, and music to complete this project. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to do. Now, it's very important that you do this because InDesign really needs to know where things are because it links to your assets. So your assets, I always tell students, put your assets in its final resting place, in your thaw space, okay, where all your photos are, where they'll never move. And that way, when you bring them into InDesign and you build your file, you will always have solid links to where your assets are. If you don't do that, if you move things around after you've imported them into InDesign, you're going to get into trouble because you're going to break links. You're going to break the link. InDesign is going to say, hey, where's that photo? I thought it was here and it looks like you moved it. Okay, and it's not going to print. It's not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to create a PDF file or all kind of things. You're going to see it in your project, and that's the confusing thing. You do see it, but when you try and do other functions like create PDFs or export to certain things, it doesn't work and it won't print. So we have to be very careful about how we work in InDesign. Okay, with that said, let's get started in our first step. And the first step that we're going to do is we're going to create these techniques, these photo vignettes that we call them. And let me just bring up InDesign again, and let me just show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when we looked in our images folder and we saw this photo of Japan, you can see that it was the entire photo. I got this photo from Google Images, okay, just from Google. And it was the whole photo, but you notice how what the technique that I did is that I faded out a lot of this area right here. Okay, and it fades out into transparency. Again, Kyoto, it's the whole photo, but if you look at what I did here, you can see that I faded out the bottom of this. Same with Osaka, I faded out all of this on this side of this photo because the original photo of Osaka looks like this. You have this branch that's coming in, you don't see that here. And you have a lot of these trees and the pathway you don't see and so forth. So there was a technique that I created in Photoshop. And that's the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create all of these techniques in Photoshop and then save them to our folder, and so we have them ready to bring into InDesign. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to hide InDesign for a sec. And our first function now is going to be to get these done in Photoshop. So I am going to click on these three photos, Japan, Kyoto, and Osaka. Hold the Shift key down and select all three of them. And I'm going to click and drag them into Photoshop. So I'm going to just drag these down. My dock is down here. Photoshop is here. And I'll just drop them right on Photoshop. Photoshop will launch. And here they are. Okay, Osaka, Japan, and Kyoto. Okay, now, one of the things that the first thing that we're going to do is we need to know what the page size is here in InDesign. See how this photo is going to cover basically 2 pages. And if I look at my page setup here, I can see that I have an 8-page document, 1 through 8, with facing pages. Now if I go to my document setup here, under File, Document Setup, you can see that the original document setup was an 8-page document, 11 by 8.5 landscape orientation, meaning that these 2 pages are facing each other. And it's landscape, meaning that it's 11 by 8.5, so 2 11 by 8.5 pages connecting to each other actually gives us a total image area of, if I took 11 and 11, that's 22 by 8.5. Okay, so it's 22 by 8.5. So knowing that it's 22 by 8.5, if I go to Photoshop now, I'm going to open up a new file that's 22 by 8.5. So let's go up to, in Photoshop, let's go to File and let's create a new document. And I don't want pixels, I want inches, and I want the width to be 22, and I want the height to be 8.5. And we'll use a, now if this were going to be printed, okay, we would need to use a 300 pixel resolution. And because InDesign is, our InDesign file is in, kind of designed for print, we're going to keep this at a 300 pixel resolution. Now I'll tell you right away, right now, that the photos that I downloaded from Google, those photos that you just saw, they don't have enough resolution for print. Okay, they're small photos, and they just don't have the resolution that we would really need if we were to print this. But that being said, this is a demonstration. This is just a project for you to understand how to put this together. So I'm not really too concerned about making sure that the photos have the correct resolution, but they should if you were actually doing this. We're going to keep this at 300. White background is fine. Okay, and I'm going to create that document. And that document is going to look like this. Okay, and that kind of mimics this page setup right here. So with this, I'm going to come over and paste. Let's start with the Japan photo. Okay, I'm going to paste this photo into this document. All right. I go over to the Japan photo, and I'm going to select all of this, the entire photo. And the way I select the entire photo, you can see that it says background here, is I'm going to do Command A for select all. Okay. And when I do select all, you can see the marching ants going all around this selection. That means I've selected the photo, and I'm going to copy it. And copy is Command C. Okay, so I did Command C. Now I'm going to come over to my untitled photo, my spread here, and I'm going to paste it into my spread. So I'm going to do Command V. Now you notice in your layers panel here that it came in as a layer above the white background layer. This is the white background. This is that small photo, this photo here. Now you can see that this photo is very small in relation to this image here. I mean this image area. And that's because the resolution of this photo is not nearly large enough. But we're gonna make it work. Okay. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this photo and I'm going to align it to the upper left of this, or the upper right of this corner here. And then I'm going to enlarge this thing, and by hitting Command T for transform, okay, with this layer selected, I'm going to do Command T or transform. Transform is also up here in the edit or the image area. It's one of these things, edit, transform right here. I'm sorry. Okay, so edit, transform, and we can, or free transform is Command T. I just use the shortcut keys, so I kind of forget sometimes where it is up here. Okay, so with this, I do Command T, and you can see the bounding boxes here. And in Photoshop, all I have to do is grab this corner, and I'm going to just click and drag and enlarge it all the way to the bottom. Okay, now let's take a look and see from Adobe InDesign. Let's go to this photo here. And we're going to just get some reference points here. Okay, we're going to see that the tip of this pagoda here, or this temple, is touching the top of the page, and then this is kind of entering this area here on this first page here. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and notice how this rocks here that gets cut off here around here. You're going to have to give yourself some reference points, and you can see what's happening here. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit so that the tip is right about there, and I'm going to enlarge this even more till about here. Okay, see how the rocks get cut off here? And then I'm going to fade this out. Okay, so let's hit my return key and set this. Okay, so there it is. And you notice how it looks nice and sharp? On your computer, it's going to look nice and sharp, but if we printed this out, it's going to look terrible because there's not enough resolution in this photo. Computers have a tendency to make things look a lot better than if we were actually printing this. Okay, so now that I have this, okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, I don't know if you've ever done a vignette, what we call a vignette, but it's quite simple to do. We have this photo here, and we're going to go over to our toolbar and grab our lasso tool, which is the third tool down. Okay, I'm going to select the lasso tool. Now remember, I have layer 1 selected. Make sure layer 1 is selected and not the background layer. Okay, I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to draw with the lasso tool a shape and cut it off right about here, and then draw it all the way down to the bottom, all the way up, and all the way, and connect it. Okay, it's important that you connect it so you make a connection with the marching ants. Okay, so here I am. Notice the tip of the arrow is right about here. And now you don't have to do this perfectly, but I'm going to take the mouse, click, and I'm going to come down and just kind of create this line here, and I'm going to cut it off right about here. I'm going to come all the way across the bottom. Notice how my cursor is outside of the photo, okay? And then I'm going to come all the way up, and then I'm going to come all the way around until I connect right there and let go of the mouse. And now you see that selection. Now, if you have trouble doing that, if you're kind of wobbly, or you have to do that all in one motion. Otherwise, just do Command Z and undo that, and it goes away. Okay, and then you can try it again. I'm going to redo that, which is Command Shift Z to get that back. One is undo, Command Z, and one is redo. So if you want to redo something that you undid, just do Command Shift and Z. Okay, so now that I have this selection, what I want to do is go up to my select icon up here, and I'm going to come down to Modify. If you hear these squeaking sounds, that's my dog down here having a dream. I'm going to come down to Select Modify, and I'm going to select Feather. Now, feathering is going to feather and soften the outsides of that selection, and it's going to create the fade. Now, how many pixels do I need to use to fade it to make it look like this? Okay, well, that depends on the resolution of your photo. And the higher the resolution of your photo, the more pixels you're going to need for a feather radius. The less resolution, the less pixels you need. Well, I've already done the experiment, and I found that 200 pixels is kind of the close. Okay, we're not going to get it exact to the example, but we're going to try and get it as close as possible. Now, you need to just experiment with this. If you don't know that it's 200, start off with 50. And if 50 is too sharp, then do, 100, then 200, then so forth. Okay, let me just show you what it would look like if I did something really low, like 10. Okay, I'm going to feather radius this only 10 pixels. Click OK. You'll understand what this means in a sec. And I'm going to click OK. Then I'm going to make a mask on this layer, a layer mask. I'm going to do that through the layer menu up here, come down to layer mask, and I'm going to reveal the selection and watch what happens. Okay? Now what I did was I cut a mask. All right? It's like cutting out a piece of paper and cutting out a mask and masking this photo. Well, because I only masked it 10 pixels, notice how sharp it is. It almost looks like it's cut out with the scissor. And I don't want that. I want a more gradual fade. So I'm going to go up to History up here. Remember your History palette in Photoshop. And I'm going to go back in history, back to the lasso selection. Okay, that undoes the last functions that I did, the feathering and the add layer. Okay, now I'm going to go back to feather, and I'm going to feather this, modify feather. I'm going to feather this. We know 10 is not enough, and this is where you got to experiment. Okay, you got to try like 100 and see what that looks like. And then if that's not enough, then 150 or 200. Well, I'm going to go right to 200 and I'm going to click OK. And you can see the selection shrink inward. Watch when I click OK and watch this selection here. Okay, it came in. So 200, now I'm going to go up to Layer and Layer Mask and Reveal Selection. And now we have this very faint, nice fade. Okay? And that's looking good. That's what I want. And that's what I want to bring into Adobe InDesign. All right, before I do that though, I want to save this. And I'm going to save this file. I'm going to go up to File and Save a Copy. Okay, Save a Copy. I'm going to save this on my computer. I'm going to save this in my folder, my John Kawa Japan Travel Brochure, Travel Brochure Assets under Images. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to also save this as a PNG. Okay, notice under Format here, I'm going to save this as a PNG file. And I'm going to call this Japan Vignette, Vignette. Okay, Japan Vignette PNG. And that's going to be this photo. So I'll save it. And I'll click OK. And that is done. Okay, so if I look in my thaw space under John Kawa Travel Brochure, Assets, Images, I can see there it is. And it's that photo. This is the original photo, and this is the one that I modified in Photoshop. Okay, so now I'm going to do the other photos. I'm going to go and turn off the visibility of this one. And I'm going to go to the Kyoto photo. I'm going to select all, Command A, copy it, Command C, go to my file here, and paste it in, Command V as in Victor. Oops, need my selection tool here, Command V. Okay, and you can see that layer here. This layer is also here, but I turned off the visibility because we don't need to see this. I'm going to bring this up all the way to the upper left. I'm going to do my transformation, Command T for transform. I'm going to drag this all the way down. And then I'm going to look over here at our example. And we can see that it's basically the bridge, this big bridge here. It starts up around here and it kind of angles down to the corner here. Okay, so you might have to do this several times to see if you can get this exact kind of feel. But let me go back to Photoshop. So I need to enlarge this quite a bit. Okay, I'm actually going to need to enlarge this photo all the way kind of to the edge of this area here. Okay. And you can see this is the whole photo here. It's much larger than the image area. But I'm going to take this and move this up, all the way up like that. Okay, just kind of move this up until this is kind of right about there. And now I'm going to do that same technique. First of all, I'm going to hit return and set this. Okay, so this is in the right position in relation to my spread. And I'm going to get my lasso tool again. And I'm going to start about right here. And I'm going to draw kind of down to the corner like that. You can see what I do. I'm going to start about here. And I'm going to just kind of drag this down here, kind of come right below this rock here, kind of come down to here, then come up and come all the way over and make that connection. Okay, see how I kind of screwed that up right there? Okay, and that's okay. That's not going to really make a difference. I don't think we're going to have problems with that. But if we wanted to do this again, you know, just do Command Z or Command D to deselect. I'll do that. Command D, deselect. And let me just do this again real quick. And I'll just kind of come down here, come around here, come down here, come up, come all the way over and connect. Okay. Now I'm going to go up with this layer selected. I'm going to go up again to select, modify, feather. I'm going to use that same 200 pixels. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go over to layer, layer mask, and reveal selection. And there it is. Okay, there's that fade. Okay. And to kind of give you an idea of what's happening, if you look at this layer mask, what's happening? We have white and we have black. And the black area is blocking out the rest of the photo. The white area is revealing the photo. So in Photoshop, we have this saying that says white reveals and black conceals. So by using black, we're blocking out the rest of the photo into transparency. This is transparent area. There's nothing behind here. Even though it looks white, if we put this photo on top of something, it would be transparent. Okay, and we can modify this mask with our brush. I'm not going to get into that, but I can show you that later. But anyway, that's what a mask is. A mask is simply black and white areas that are placed on top of this photo. Even though this is on the side of this photo, it's as if you were taking this and putting it right on top of the photo. The black is what's blocking out the photo. The white is what's revealing. And because we have this feather going, you can see this soft edge. Okay, so that's good for this photo, and I'm going to save this again. So I'm going to go up to File, Save a Copy. I'm going to save it to the computer. I'm going to save it as a PNG. I'm going to come over and name this, and we'll call this Kyoto Vignette, V-I-G-N-E-T-T-E, and we'll save this to our images folder. Okay, that's what's queued up right now because that was the last place I saved in Photoshop. And I will save this. Okay, and click OK. All right, so that's done. And then I'll turn off the visibility of this and do the last one, which is the Osaka photo. And I'll click on this photo and hit Command A to select all. You can see the marching ants. I'll do Command C to copy. Then I'll come over to my blank white page and I'll paste. Command V. Command V. And then I will move this up to the upper left corner. I'll do Command T to transform. I'll drag this out. And let's take a look and see where this photo, the top of the temple is about this far away from the top of the page. And then it goes all the way to around here in the photo around this cherry blossom tree. I can see these poles coming up. I can see a little bit of this kind of candy cane pole up here. So that kind of gives me an idea where the bottom is, how much I have to enlarge this photo. I'll come back to Photoshop, which means that I need to move this up a little bit, okay, where the top of this is about that far away. And then I need to really enlarge this even more where, okay, you see that candy cane thing right there? All right. And this is the end of it. So I'm going to kind of come in like this with my lasso tool and just kind of do that as a selection. I'll hit my return to set this. And now I'll get my lasso tool out. I'm going to start about here. And I'm going to come down like this. And I'll come out around here. And then I'm going to come all the way around here and here and here and connect it. Okay. And all of this is going to fade out into transparency. So I'll come up to select, modify, feather. I'll use that same 200 pixel selection, click OK. And then I'll come up to layer, layer mask, and reveal selection. And that kind of faded all of this section out. So this is kind of what this is. It's going to look something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. Again, File, save as, or I'm sorry, save a copy. Come over here. And I will save this as a PNG. And then I will call this Osaka vignette.png. And I'm going to save this again to images. Save. And OK. OK. So I've done everything I need to do in Photoshop. I've saved my photos, my 3 photos. Let me not close out Photoshop, but just kind of put it in the dock. Let's go to my thaw space here and open this up and see what we have. Okay, my Japan travel brochure, assets, images. So now I have the original Japan photo, the vignette that I'm going to use, the original Kyoto photo, and the vignette that I'm going to use, and then the Osaka photo and the vignette that I'm going to use. Okay, it's going to be these PNG files that I'm going to bring into InDesign. Okay, so that is looking good. And now we have done everything that we need to do in Photoshop for this particular project. We don't need to come back into Photoshop again unless we need to modify those photos a bit. If we do, we still have the Photoshop file here. And what I would suggest you do is save this file as a Photoshop file. In fact, I'll do that right now. I'm going to go to File, Save As, or Save. It's untitled right now. So I'm going to save it for the first time. And I'm going to call this file, and I'm going to save it as a PSD, a Photoshop document. I'm going to call this the vignette. Vignette file. Okay, and this file contains all of the vignettes that I did. So if I need to come back to this file and make modifications to this, I have all the layers and I have all the masks, and I can come back and redo it easily. Okay, and I'm going to save this vignette file in the same images file here. So we'll just say save. Click OK. Okay, and again, if I looked in my travel brochure assets under images, you can see there's my vignette, Photoshop vignette file if I need to go back and make any kind of revisions to this. All right, so I don't need Photoshop anymore for now, so I'm going to go up to Photoshop and quit. Close that out. Now, we're going to assume, obviously you're not going to have this file, so we're going to assume that we're going to open up now our document, our brochure document, for the first time in InDesign. Okay, a fresh file. So we're going to come up in InDesign and we're going to go up to File and create a new document. And the new document we're going to create is a 8-page, 11 by 8.5, landscape document with facing pages. We'll keep our margins and columns the same as the default, and we'll create it. Okay, so here is our document, and you can see by our pages layout, our pages panel, we have our cover, our 2-3 spread, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Now, when we start building this, and in the next video I'm going to talk about how we're going to build this file, but let's bring in one of those photos just to show you what we did in Photoshop and how it works. So if I go here to my travel brochure assets under images, I'm going to bring in this Japan PNG, this one here. Okay, and I'm just going to click this PNG and just kind of click and drag it into InDesign. And there it is. Okay, and I'm going to click once and drag it over, and there is the, okay, I'm going to lock it right in this corner here. Set it right there. And there's that photo. Hit my guides off. And now I can start building my text in InDesign and putting all the other elements here. But this photo was modified in Photoshop, saved, and brought into InDesign. Okay, and this is exactly fits this document because in Photoshop we made sure that when we sized this document, we sized it to the 22 by 8.5. Okay, and that's what this is. This is a 22 by 8.5 document. By setting it up in InDesign as a 11 by 8.5 facing pages, look at our rulers up here. What do we get? We get 22 inches wide by 8.5 inches deep. Okay, so it fits perfectly. You can see that the photograph doesn't have really tight resolution because it's so big and it was such a poor resolution photograph to start with. But this will be fine for what we need to do to build this brochure. Okay, and if I did that with all the other photographs, which I will in the next video, you'll see how this all starts coming together. Okay, so the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we download all of our assets, we put them in the right spots in our thaw space, and then we bring them into Photoshop and we do all of our photo modifications, save those files out, also save the Photoshop, the main Photoshop file, so that we have something to go back to if we need layers. And then we're going to be ready to put this together in InDesign. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will come back to you with the second video, the second part of this brochure, where we put everything together in InDesign. But this is the very first video I want you to watch, and I want you to get these photos ready to to be used for the project. Okay, with that, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you in the next video.